We graduated in June of 2020, so it was smack dab during COVID, and so there was some problem solving to be done around that, just in the time that we lived in. The whole world was problem solving, but in the last 2 years, we've all found ourselves to be extremely lucky and in good jobs, and so sharing that experience is what we want to do. I, as Hank said, am a jokester, but PC really helped cultivate a lot of that in me. And a piece of that was the play that PC always talks about, that M.AD School of Ideas always talks about, and how carrying play throughout what you do is really, really important. And so not losing that humor, not losing the spark that makes you as you go through life, and especially as you start to graduate and get jobs, as you start to design a lot of these projects, not worrying about what other people would like, but do stuff that brings you joy, that you find yourself like really gaining life from. And that's one thing that PC taught me, and that's why I was a jokester and probably took it too far once or twice. But real quick, along those lines, I do have a book I want to mention just about not letting go of the spark that makes you. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to listen to James Victory, if he's come and talked recently. He did when I was there, and so he's probably due again. Just a phenomenal designer who has a really great outlook on life and design. But he has a book, Feck Perfection.
Put it in the chat.
We'll throw it in the chat. I'll link it. I highly recommend reading that book. It's about carrying you through your life and how it can show up in design, and how once you realize what set you apart as a kid, you need to capitalize on that, and that will help influence everything you do and really start to put your own voice in things. I have a second book I'll mention later that's less important, but Feck Perfection by James Victory. Shelby's typing it out for me.
No, that's right.
That is correct. And you can buy it on Amazon. I think you might be able to get it off his website. But anyways, so that was just a starter. The main things I wanted to talk about was just like real quick where I'm at right now. So graduated June 2020. That was really weird time, and it took its toll. So I didn't do anything until October of 2020. I just kind of laid in bed. It wasn't a bright time. I do love sleeping, but it was just a really hard time trying to figure out, like, is life possible? What am I doing as a designer? Like COVID, what is happening to the world? Like, who knew what was gonna happen? Anyways, I happened to go to the beach, meet with my brother, and he kind of slapped some sense into me very kindly with some harsh words. Get off your ass. What do you need to do? I was like, I have to make a website. He was like, go make a website. Just get off your ass and go do that. That's the one thing that needs to happen. You should be doing that. And I did. And 2 weeks later, I was looking at cities I wanted to live in, and I applied to a place out here in Denver. And I had 2 interviews with them. I worked a lot with Hank in that interview process. And I got out here, mid-October, 2 weeks after building my website. What I realized from that is starting is the most important thing in any project, in searching for jobs, and starting your day, like getting out of bed. Like, if you want to take that analogy, just put one foot on the ground, and so much can happen when you do that. But in that process, Hank and I had to sell myself to this company. This lady started a company 30 years ago as a design studio in Rhino here in Denver. And I was taking the place of someone who had been there for 8 years. I was fresh out of school, just a green newbie, not really knowing anything, probably a bigger head than I should have had, definitely a smart mouth. And anyway, so me and Hank really worked to sell myself on that. And one thing he told me was, hey, like, once I landed the job, because we convinced her I can do it. One way we convinced her I could do it is through humility. And like recognizing that, hey, I realize I'm new. And as you're finishing school, this happened to me. It might not happen to everyone. As you're finishing school, it's so easy to get a big head because you're like the older in the school, right? And you're like the 8th quarter, people are coming to you for design advice. Like, you finally got a grasp on what the hell design is and how to apply it in different situations. And so it's really easy to start to feel really big and like full of yourself, which is good to be excited. But, you know, having that humility piece of recognizing like, okay, I am new, and in comparison, I don't know a lot, and I'm willing to learn. What I can offer you is that willingness. So that's the route we went. When I landed at Hank said, you just keep your head down. You do what you're told, you keep your head down, and you work through what's put in front of you. And I really took that advice. Like that's hard for me to do. I like to be the center of attention. So putting my head down and just like working and not talking back, not giving my own ideas was tough for a bit. What happened though, in like being really diligent in that humbleness for the first stint I was there, really opened up a lot of doors to where they started to value my opinion, because I'd shown that I'm willing to learn and willing to accept and like take in some things like a sponge. Then when I started to give this and like started to speak my own mind of, hey, this design, you know, does this, and that's why I made that choice, they were more willing to hear it. So just as you are in school and as you go into the professional realm, just being aware that, you know, you don't know everything, and we really need to learn from others and be willing to learn from other people and be willing to say that, hey, I don't know everything, but here's what I can do. I can learn this program in a week, and I can be executing. That's my first point. My second point would be kind of centered around not knowing what you want to do. I didn't know what city I really wanted to live in. It's kind of like Austin, Denver, San Francisco. I knew that I liked branding, but I didn't know in what design, you know, how that would come to fruition. And I still don't really know where I want to end up, and that is okay. But in getting the first job, that gave me experience in a field, branding and identity systems, really centered around like real estate and like apartment building and housing. But that gave me experience. I know I hate signage and I hate real estate developments, and I don't want to brand real estate developments again. It's terrible. I just didn't enjoy it. But that gave me experience. I gained a lot of great things from that job. The one I'm currently working at is a tech company. They do a lot of business to business financial operations. It goes over my head. Thankfully, I just get to put colorful squares together. Joking. I can't hear any laughs, so I don't know how well these jokes are going over. I'm just assuming they're like landing really well. Yes, thank you. Usually my jokes bomb. So, no. I don't put colorful squares together, but there anyway. So where I'm at right now is definitely not where I saw myself 2 years ago. Working for a tech company, I'm a sole graphic designer. They just went through a merger and they're introducing a new brand. And so when I heard about the opportunity and these things about managing two brands to become one and rolling out this new one and all of these things, what I saw was an opportunity to learn and gain some experience. What I'm not super excited about is the tech realm and the financial operations. Thank you, AA, for the support. Oh, and Alexandra, I didn't see that one.
Sound like you're on a live TikTok where everyone's like, thank you.
Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the roses. Just like and follow if you guys want more content. So what I'm not super excited about is like the tech and financial operations of that. What I'm gaining is a really, really great experience in brand managing multiple brands. I'm introduced to a whole new world of digital design that I just wasn't doing at my last job at the design studio. Doing a lot of UX, UI, learning Figma, having to really dive into After Effects and Premiere, things that are just really pushing and expanding me. And I don't know how long I'm going to stay here. I don't know if in 2 years I'm going to stay with the tech company. All of that to say, it is totally okay. Especially in school, I felt like the world was ending because you would hear these people come and talk to you, and some of them, it just falls into their lap. Some of them, they fit well in an area or they already know. And that's great for them. But it's also okay for you to take your time and take a job that you're unsure about and feel it out. You're going to gain experience. And, you know, we've got our whole lives ahead of us. So I'm encouraging myself here just as much as I'm encouraging you. Just a little pep talk, you know. And so yeah, that was my second main point. It's just be open to not knowing what you want to do and let that be okay. And then two, just caveats to that. The first, I would say, being open to not know what you want to do is great. I think, though, in life, it is important to have a rudder. And that's going to be a thing that just helps you steer. It can be very broad. It can be very specific. Mine is very broad. Mine is a quote by philosopher Jean Petit-Senn. And it says, I'm so sorry, I want to get it correctly. Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance. That is just something I always keep in my head. Obviously, I had to read it, but obviously in my back pocket. And I just use it as a rudder. Like, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if there's stuff I don't know, whatever, what constitutes my abundance? What constitutes my fulfillment? And it's not what I tangibly have, it's what I enjoy, who I enjoy. And so it helps to put some things in perspective. So having a life rudder, I think, is something that can caveat to not knowing what you want to do. And then the last thing I'll mention is another book that I just had to read in a book club with my new CEO. And so it's a little more tech focused and metric based, but it's called Measure What Matters. I will type out the name as well. And it's by John Doerr. Measure What Matters. So in classic book club fashion, I read the first 4 chapters. But you can really glean a lot from the prologue in the first chapter. There's a lot of summary. If that's all you read, that's great. I just recommend reading this. What it introduces is this thing called OKRs. It can get a bit heady. So I'll let you guys dive in on your own. Ultimately, it's just really sustainable and attainable objectives that you can start to implement in your life. It tells you how to write those. It tells you how to make them attainable and like practical, and not like some like become the world's best designer. You know, it'll help you write it to where it says be recognized by AIGA as America's top designer. You know, it's something a little more like quantifiable. But it doesn't just apply to companies. It can apply really well to your personal life. And I think it could be a really great tool as you guys just start moving forward and start achieving. This could be something that would be helpful. So I'm going to mention that book as well. I will be quiet for a couple of minutes.
Good luck. Hey everyone, I'm Shelby. I'm a copywriter at Bartleby, and for everyone, I'm sure, who does not know what that is, we're basically a Chegg competitor, a homework helper started by Barnes & Noble Education. I had many jobs leading up to this one. As Dan mentioned, we graduated during COVID. So really that kind of, I think shifted everyone's plans and changed the outcomes of where we all thought we would be. But today I want to talk to you about the importance of saying yes. Pretty much, that's what it all boils down to for me. If you've ever seen the movie Yes Man, that's kind of how I think of myself with jobs. When I got out of school, sorry, let me backtrack. There's a lot to unpack here. Another thing that's very important I wanted to touch on was the work that you do in school actually does matter. I know sometimes you can have so many assignments and there's one class that you think, oh, this sounds so boring. Let me just be, that will be like kind of like my drop class, or you're going to do the bare minimum just to get through it. Don't do that to any of your classes if you can help it, because personally, whenever I was in school, I of course went for the copywriting track, and I felt like a lot of our classes were, they were very campaign focused. I felt like a lot of them were kind of similar to where the ask was always like, make a campaign for this brand, but it was just a different brand in every class. And I met these 2 designers, and of course, see them in classes and stuff and hear about what they're doing when we're working in the cave, in our caves, if y'all still have those. And they'd be talking about all these projects they were working on, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, that sounds so fun. But they were, of course, like design based, because they had to come up with a product or come up with a restaurant concept and things like that. But they always had copy attached to them. So they always had to do a write-up for that restaurant and explain their idea, or write about the product that they were creating. And of course, the designers weren't really interested in writing copy. So
I actually don't know how to read.
so it started with one designer who was, I don't know, 1 or 2 quarters ahead of me. Like we'd never had a class together, never even really spoken. She was in the cave talking about how she had to create some web copy for a product she was creating. And I just said, I'll do it for you. I had never done that before, didn't have a class on it. But it sounded like a fun project. And I knew that I wasn't getting those kinds of projects in my own classes. So I very quickly became the copy girl who everyone would say, you know, like, if you don't want to write your copy, ask Shelby, she'll probably do it. And every time I could, I always said yes. And that is one of the best things that I ever did, because I got multiple job offers from people who were connected to those designers, from the projects where I voluntarily just said, I'll do that. Let's work together. I know actually one designer on this call, James Harrell, he was working at an agency in Atlanta, and I had done, I think I worked on one project with him, where he was creating a wine bottle label, and I wrote the copy for his wine bottles. And a few months later, he introduced me to his boss, who was looking for a copywriter. Same thing with another designer, the one I was telling you about that I originally did that project for. She got hired at Pepsi, and she asked me if I wanted the connection because they were also looking for a copywriter. And this was during COVID when I got out of school. Did not take that job because I did not want to live in New York, but you know, they came, and I got multiple offers or connections with people that were in the industry from just people that I worked with in school. So you may think, this doesn't matter. When I graduate, I'll apply places. I won't see any of these people again. That's false. That's completely false. Everywhere I've worked, I've been asked if I know a designer, if I know an art director, if I know people for other positions that they're looking to fill. And that's why it's so important to really actually put your best foot forward in school, because the people that are in your classrooms are the people who are going to be recommending you or saying, do not hire that girl. She's not going to do it. Like, no, don't do it. You know, these are the people who actually have seen your work ethic and are going to recommend you or not. And going back to the job that the designer, James, got my foot in the door with, that I rejected, because that happened because I also had the opportunity to do an internship during my time at Miami Ad, which everyone, you should all be taking advantage of this. From the second that you can, apply to every internship that you can throughout the school year. I only did one, and that is my only regret of school, my time being in school. I ended up going to Japan.
Wait, you regret not doing
more? Yes.
Or
yes.
only regret isn't doing
not doing the internship.
Yeah, let's clarify
not doing them every quarter that I could have.
Yes. Okay.
I only applied once, and I ended up going to Japan and Ogilvy there. And then going back to saying yes to everything. So many of my projects that people refer to whenever I'm in interviews, or have been in interviews in the past, are projects that were not from my class. They're either ones that I did with designers. So they say, oh, I like this, we're looking for this style copy. Or they actually came from ones that were more, I guess, passion projects, that I ended up doing with a girl I met in Japan. So she was not actually at Ogilvy, but we stayed in a share house. So everyone has their own rooms, and you share the bathrooms and living spaces. I saw her come through the door. A lot of the other people there were Japanese, and I could not communicate with them. So whenever I saw her come in, I was like, you look like you speak English. Let's be friends. And we got to talking, and she's Canadian, and she actually had gone to Japan for an internship at AKQA. And so we were staying in the same place, and we got to talking, discovered she's an art director, I'm a copywriter, and we just started talking about our work. We pulled out our laptops and showed each other our favorite projects that we'd done, pulled up our portfolios, and she told me that she was working on some things, or that she wanted to submit some projects for D&AD awards, which you should also be doing. So we pulled up some briefs together, and oh, you know what? I lied. Actually, we didn't start working on any of this until we moved. Okay, so my internship ended. Actually, I was in Japan when COVID happened. So I had to come back a few weeks early. And then D&AD was all getting started. But we had each other's contact information. She sent me a brief and said, I'm trying to think of an idea, something to do for Burger King. Here's what I have so far. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, let's flip it and do XYZ. We called each other, and within an hour, we had a whole presentation. Like, we had our whole D&AD, the bones of what we wanted to do, because we both just worked. We found we worked so well together, because she actually had me help her with a project when we were in Japan that she had previously started working on for class and she needed copy for. So we did that together. Saw we worked well together, and then we ended up doing two more projects to enter for D&AD awards. We didn't win, sad. But whatever. But those are two of the other projects that people refer to often whenever they look at my book. And all of these things came from me just taking on extra work because it's what interested me and it's what I wanted to do. So you're in school and you have literally every single tool available to you. You have, if you don't like the art director you're working with, guess what? You have teachers who you can say, I want to learn to mock this up because my partner isn't very helpful. They're not as passionate about this project I'm working on. You can find YouTube videos of how to do everything. Some of the stuff in my book, I wasn't always paired with partners that were my favorite. I ended up, teaching myself enough Photoshop or After Effects to where I could create what I wanted and what I was seeing in my mind. Like, you have every resource available to you. Just like those designers use me to do their copy. Could do the same thing if I was like, I want to do a restaurant, but I don't know any of the design stuff. Dan, do you want another project to add to your book? Yeah. Like, it's as easy as just figuring out who else has the same interests as you and just make it happen for yourself. If you're not getting the work that you want to be doing in your own classes, do it yourself. Like, you had a brief, make your own brief. Show what you can show off your own work. You have the tools now from school of how to create everything. Make it your own. And with the say yes aspect, so getting out of school, I was basically a freelancer, say, for a while, and I was lucky that I did have gigs. I wasn't really without a job for long, like, I don't think really ever, because when I was in school, I always did tell Hank, I was like, can I be in design? Just put me in designers classes and make me do all their copy. But that didn't work out for me. So. But he knew I always came and bugged him and said, I want to do this kind of stuff. I want to do this. Like, how do I get this job? And we had a speaker come from Principal Design Firm, which that's the place that we'd looked at a lot of their work during school. And Hank said, oh, you remind me a lot of their copywriter. She likes to write all the kinds of stuff that you do. They did a presentation. And so I blew Hank's phone up and begged him for an intro. And I think actually the presenter called me out during the end of her presentation, and she was like, hey, I hear there's someone, Shelby, who I should meet. So thank you, Hank, for that. And that was kind of my first, when I graduated, I got an internship. They paid me, even though they really did not need a writer because I was not all that busy. They were just like, it was a pity.
She needed it.
Internship.
You needed a confidence.
They're like, please stop contacting me. We'll let you work here for 3 months. So, but I got paid. Same time, actually, one of the designers that I mentioned I had done work for in school, that was not one of my class projects. I ended up, she connected me with a friend when she moved to New York that was creating a line of beauty products, lotion, things like that. And the designer was creating a logo and making it look real, and they wanted someone to do the copy. So she suggested me. So I created a whole like named products, wrote their web, had a little job there. I mean, even whenever I got my full-time job when I moved here, I would always say yes to freelance jobs. Like
Insomnia.
Yeah, I worked at Insomnia Cookies for a good bit as a freelancer, even though I was like pretty busy with my real job, and any other freelance that I was already picking up on the side, I would just always say yes and, wake up earlier, go to bed later.
I don't know how you do that. I don't know how she wakes up earlier. I'm still trying to.
Just do it. Shut up and do it. But I mean, honestly, that's what it is. There were a lot of times I would take jobs and I'm like, dude, what the hell am I doing? Like, I told them I could dedicate 10 hours. I'm already working a 40-hour job and I already have this other freelance job. Like, there's actually not that many hours in life, but screw it. Like, I'm not going to do anything half-assed. I'm not going to give them shit work. And I'm not going to say no to this opportunity, because you never know when some job that you see is like, oh, this is lame, I really don't want to do this, is going to lead you to a connection for your dream job. or something that you really do want to be doing later. And actually, that's how I got the job that I'm at now. I'm not going to say it was my dream job, no, but I am happy that I made the move. I started out at an agency here, and I was freelancing for Insomnia Cookies. And one of the marketing manager at Insomnia Cookies actually ended up going to Bartleby first, and they needed a copywriter. They're just building out the creative team, and so she reached out to me because she recommended my name. And so I would never have the job that I have now had I not taken on those freelance jobs that I probably time-wise maybe shouldn't have. So I just always like to say yes to any opportunity that comes my way, because if I work for Dan, he might know someone along the line like 10 years later who's going to say, I need a writer, and he'll think of me. And that's how I actually got my first job when I moved here too. I did a freelance job. When I was hanging up the phone, I said, hey, if you know anyone out in Denver that's looking for a writer full time, please, I'd appreciate it if you send them my portfolio. And he said, you know what? I actually know a guy. I emailed that guy and I got my first job here. So don't be afraid to, ask for what you want, to tell people, if you know anyone else looking, let me know. Like, I'd appreciate it if you pass my name along. Like, that's networking, and that is very important. I really didn't realize how important it was, but when I think back on every job that I've had, it's usually from someone who I've worked with in the past that's recommended me. So, always do your best. Don't half-ass any projects. Because if I was working with Dan, he sucked, and my job was like, oh, I saw this person on your LinkedIn, like he went to school with you or he applied. Do you want him, would you recommend him? I'm not going to lie, just because,
wait,
he's a terrible designer, so I'm not going to say otherwise.
Would you recommend me right now?
You don't want to wake up early. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. His work's great.
Guys, I have a different call. I'm sure.
No, but yeah. So, I just say, take any opportunity that comes your way. If you have the time to dedicate and do work that you're proud of on that project, and don't just take the assignments that you're given in school. If you're not passionate about those, think of stuff you are passionate about. Like, even to this day, I'm not an agency, I'm not at a PR firm, but sometimes I just have ideas for brands. The other day, I had an idea for an Adobe spot, and I literally just open my notes and I write it down. Like, I have a whole note section of possible campaigns or things I want to build out to add to my portfolio, because down the line I might want to go to PR or not be in-house. I might want to do something else. So I just write down all the ideas that I have so that I can flesh them out when I have time and still build my portfolio, even if what I'm currently doing isn't building for what I want it to.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Hope it helped. Peyton, I'm passing it to you.
Thanks, Shelby. I just want to go back to what you're saying.
You were supposed to be here in between me and Shelby.
Yeah.
Two floors down. We're in the same complex.
Yeah, usually on a daily basis, Shelby and I would be on the same couch, and occasionally Dan will come over and join us. But I had to go to Miami for something important. So here I am. Anyway, so kind of what Shelby was saying about saying yes, it really is like, I wish I knew that coming out of school, because, like they were saying, we graduated in the middle of the pandemic, like literally there were 0 jobs, and it was really discouraging because we worked our asses off for 2 years and we're very confident in our work and knew we deserved great jobs, but there was nothing. And I ended up getting this job in Atlanta. It was awful. It was literally the worst. I was doing graphic design for it was this medical company, and there was photos of burned victims, and it was a lot. So I will say I don't ever regret taking that job, because I learned so much from it, and also learned what I don't want to do, which I think is just as important as figuring out what you do want to do, because it leads to that. And when I graduated, I was always very set on staying in Atlanta. My whole life, I said, I want to live in Atlanta. I won't leave the East Coast. But then my 2 best friends from school were like, peace, we're going to Denver. Those 2. And
I just want to clarify, I did come out here first and you guys followed me.
I hate to admit that I was a follower, but you know what? It happened. Everything happens for a reason. But my mindset was I really like everything happens for a reason. If I'm just gonna apply to jobs out there. If I get one that seems great, I'll take it. And I did. I got a job at a social media agency for a bunch of food and beverage brands, and it was so much fun. I loved it. We would like come up with the photo shoots, like literally cook the food in the agency, photograph it. We got to eat the food. It was amazing. Like clients like Green Giant, Spice Islands. It was really fun. But then this company where I work now, Haha Tequila, I don't know if y'all have heard of it, but it's like a lot of people think it's Jaja, it's Jaja because it's in Spanish. It was always like when I was in school, we would literally look at this company as inspiration. Like like we literally would send each other posts from them and like send each other the branding. And I saw that they were hiring. So I was like, oh, I really love my job right now, but I'll just apply. Like, why not? Probably won't get it. I learned that's not the mindset you should have because you will get the job if you are confident in it. It was a hard decision because like I really did love my job, but I knew that I would regret it if I didn't take it. And it's just been such a good opportunity. Like it's crazy how like if I hadn't decided to move to Denver, I wouldn't have had a job working in social media, and that was what I was hired for at HaHa, which is like it was so hard for me to grasp this job because like I'm telling you, we would talk about it so much in school. And it's just crazy to see like where things lead you and how everything really does happen for a reason. Like you might have a job that you absolutely hate, miserable every day, but it will take you to somewhere, like everything adds up and will take you to where you want to be. So you just have to keep that mindset because literally every job you have will teach you something and you'll get something out of it. Which, it is hard, like coming out of school, you want to think like, I'm going to get the job of my dreams right away. But, that's not always the case. Like to be realistic, it is a learning process. Like it's a big jump. Like school is awesome because you got to kind of choose like the brands you want to work on and choose the projects. And we really miss that. And it was so much fun. Like what we really loved was all working together in school. Like we would always collaborate. Like in the cave, we would always just jump ideas off each other, and literally the best ideas would come from that. Like you start with something and then it just leads to something you never would have thought of. And I think that's another really important thing about building relationships with your class. Dan, what are you saying? You're on mute.
Shelby said she wanted to interrupt, and I said I've been wanting to interrupt this whole time just because of what you were saying. We so agree with of like collaboration in the cave. So many of my best design projects I almost don't take credit for in real life.
You're welcome.
Because Shelby would have the idea. No, literally, you would. And I'd be like, you're not even a designer.
Yeah.
Why is your idea better than mine?
Yeah, happens all the time. And that's like that's why we literally will work at each other's apartments today, because like so many things that are on HaHa's Instagram are like one of their ideas that like literally like Shelby's gonna put stuff on her portfolio and like
and the
I actually started freelancing.
They were like, well, it's a very small company at the moment and they don't have a copywriter, and we're like expecting the designers to do the copy, and I'm like, I cannot write, like that's just not something I'm capable of doing. So I was like, well, I know a copywriter, Shelby, she also loves the brand, which, okay, side note, little whatever, a huge thing,
I'm so sorry. Just go on, Paige.
A huge thing, and what got me the job at HaHa, like they told me that my passion for the brand, like I really expressed how much I love the brand, and they're like, that really stood out to us. So I think that's a huge thing. And another job I got an interview for Delta, which was the peak of my life. I didn't get the job, but it's fine because I got the interview. I saved the email forever. And the reason I didn't get it was because I didn't have experience in animation. So I would definitely take the time to like teach yourself other skills. Like there wasn't ever a specific animation class in school, but I regret not taking the time to learn that and implementing it into my projects then. But back to my point, when the woman emailed me back about the Delta job, she was like, I really admire your passion for the brand. Like it really stood out to her, like how passionate I was. And I mean, it's crazy also being on the other side of it, like being at the job and seeing like you're the one wanting to hire someone else, like what you're looking for. Like it's so important to see someone that's super excited, like they're going to put so much more effort towards it and be really passionate about what they're working on. I would say that's a huge factor. I don't know, that's what I would recommend the most for interviews. Dan, it looks like you were going to interrupt me. Did you?
I was not going to this time. I promise.
No, feel free. Go for it.
I was not.
I'll interrupt you just because I wanted to add before we go too far off your point, where you said about some of our best ideas coming from working in the cave. And that is 1000% true. And we do, like she said, we always joke that we're constantly breaking our NDAs because, I'll be like, oh, do you have an idea for this? We need to do something for this. What you got? And we all three do that with each other. But that's why it's also another, like, so important to find your people in school and don't just be like, oh, class is over now. Like, I don't need to talk to these people. I already have a group of friends, whatever. Like, it's really nice to have other creative friends that you can go to because we work, all of us, right? Fully remote. Like, and it's not like we have a meeting to discuss every single thing that gets brought to the table. It's like, here's a Slack, do
this has to get done.
Like, yeah. So sometimes it's really hard to be creative, especially in the same environment all the time. Like in your house, wake up, every single thing you do is here. Like sometimes it's hard to find that motivation and the drive. So having like these people that I can go to and like they know what we're dealing with. Number one, we can vent to each other, or we can ask, for help. And I mean, whenever Peyton says ideas for haha, I'm like, oh, that could work for Bartleby too. I can just twist it like this. Or if I have an idea for Bartleby, oh, Peyton did this for haha. And we all kind of do that with each other, and it's really nice to have a group of people to go to. And when you're like, I got nothing, when you have to come up with ideas, it could be.
And there's more that aren't here. So we still are, we also do the same thing, collaboration with like Leanna and our friends Jalen, who went to school with us, and are just constantly like Snapchatting or texting different things, Instagram, different inspiration we run across or ideas. I know when I was interviewing for my current job, I processed some of the design exercise with Leanna because I needed some like, hey, I'm not thinking about this correctly and I have to get this out there. And so that was massively helpful.
Yeah, like when you're so stuck on something and like you literally cannot think of a thing, you go to someone and they give you like the smallest thing and then you jump up from there and then you come up with thousands of ideas based on that one thing. Victoria, to answer your question, I a lot of times would go to Shelby because she's my copywriter friend, and it's crazy because I'm a designer, she's a copywriter, and like I would come to her with copy help, and like between the two of us, we would just come up with something like together, kind of like even with design, like it's always collaborative. Like we'll write it together, we'll both like give advice for how it should be designed, and it's so helpful in that. So I would definitely advise finding a copywriter friend because I don't know, it's like you have the idea in your head and what you want to say, but you just can't put it into words. Like I think that's a hard thing for a designer because like kind of translating the message into words it's very difficult for me. Again, I know we sound redundant, but like collaboration is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I had to do some copy at the last design studio I was at, just because we didn't have a copywriter. So any content that was being input into anything, brochure, website, whatever was coming from us designers. I think it has to be phrased correctly. There needs to be a willingness to try. And so even if you don't like the copy, they don't want to hear that you don't like it. They don't care if you don't want to try. It's your job. Ultimately. And so there has to be that willingness to try. I think as you try, there can be things that are like quantifiable, like, hey, we need a copywriter because X, Y, and Z. Like, as you can start to present things with like data, usually works best with companies. I know at school it's very easy. We didn't need data. Like, so much was creativity. Like, how creative can you be, and really pushing some of that. And that's a shift as you become professional. So you jump into this realm. Really presenting some like concrete things can help reinforce what you're saying. So if you start to collect some of that, then you could probably, make a case for, hey, this is the pro. These are the pros of a copywriter. These are what they can do. Strategy, strategic narrative. They can write this so much. They can free up my time, and I can dedicate all of this time to making this better. And so just kind of reframing things, but still keeping an openness to try, because you're being told
You don't
to.
have a choice.
Yeah.
One other thing that I want to bring up that like I wish was told to me when I graduated is, when you first start out as a designer, at least your first couple jobs, you're going to think constantly like, I'm going to be fired. Like, you're going to think like your ideas aren't good, and like your art director or whoever gives you feedback is going to give you so many corrections. Like, you're going to think that they don't like you and regret hiring you. Like, but everybody thinks that. Like, it's not you. Like, when I look back at old jobs, I'm like, why did I think that? Like, I know I did a great job, but when you're in the moment, you think like, I'm not doing well. Like, why are they giving me so many corrections? And there's times where you'll give designs and like it won't even end up being close to what you gave them, and you won't feel good about it, but it happens with everybody. And my current creative director, he made me feel better about it, because he's been very successful. And he was telling me that when he first started at Haha, like his designs had to be approved by so many people that like it really broke down his confidence, and it was just really hard on him, and like basically said exactly how like you would feel. And it was crazy hearing that from someone that I know is so talented and so successful, and like the creative director at a company, like you don't really hear that from a lot of people higher up. Like, really everybody goes through it. So just remember that you're a very talented designer, and every job is a learning process. And I honestly love critique, because that's how you learn and that's how you get better. And that's how I've improved with like throughout all my jobs. Like, it's kind of like school as well, because you learn so much through that. And if I hadn't have ever gotten critique, like I wouldn't have grown as a designer. So just keep that in mind, that you're very talented, and everybody goes through that.
Yeah, and take advantage of all of your projects you're doing now. One of my biggest things I miss about school is the frontier. What do you call it? The new frontier. Anything is possible. So just, you're getting to do whatever you want to do. And when you're working for someone else, so much is decided. So, and you start to find creativity in other areas, and a lot of jobs are great, provide freedom, but take advantage of the freedom you have right now. Thanks, Victoria, for the question earlier. I think we can open it up now to any other questions. If people want to know anything about the transition between school to work, anything about school, anything about work, our current jobs. If anyone wants to know why Shelby is even our friend anymore, I'm confused about that.
Did all your projects.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot. Daniel.
Okay. Yes. First of all, thank you for your words of wisdom and for sharing your journey. Very enlightening. I had a question. Did you ever, at any point during school, let's say if you were paired with somebody on a project, did you ever find yourself in a situation where you felt like maybe whoever you were partnered with wasn't pulling their weight, or you felt like you had to navigate that? Like, how did you navigate that from a diplomatic / practical perspective?
I might have handled it different than either of y'all. So also please answer, but I would love to go first.
Go.
Okay.
Speak now.
Are you sure I can go? I had a situation like that. It was a group project, and there was someone who I didn't feel was pulling their weight. Actually, I felt like a couple people weren't. And what I failed in is I let that get the better of me. What I should have done is pulled up my britches and done their side of things, because it wasn't that much work, but whatever. And I let it get the best of me, and I let it frustrate me, and I let those pieces go uncompleted until the final critique. And it was a project that fell so flat because of that. In that process, though, I think one thing I did correctly was open communication with the teacher. From week 2, when I saw that there wasn't participation, I was very open with that teacher, letting her know that. Keeping her up to date, like, hey, we are trying to do weekly meetings. Like, we're supposed to meet every Thursday, and our attendance for the weekly meetings has been like 25%, which means I'm the only one showing up because there's a group of 4. So, just being, I think, very open with that, because they have a bit more power in these situations than you do, and we are not our peers' shepherds. In a sense, we can push the people around us like to be better, but there's also a piece where these people are going to put in as much work as they want to, and guess what? They're going to get less out than you will. And so what I wish I would have done is kept the open communication with the teacher, but taken enough initiative to just go ahead and do what wasn't getting done, like at a high enough level. I showed the project in critique, and I don't cry a lot. Actually, I rarely cry, except for Pixar movies and Harry Potter. I really don't cry. That critique, it was 4th quarter. I broke down in front of the panel because every single project except one that I brought, they tore apart. Just like, you half-assed it. We can tell that you didn't try, The reason I broke down is because they were so right. And like, I knew that all quarter, and I didn't take the initiative to just fix it. So open communication and initiative, that's what I would say.
I had the same panel for critique right after Dan, and I saw him walk out absolutely bawling. And I was like absolutely in panic of like, what am I walking into? It was
Trash. All of our projects are trash that quarter.
But I mean, I wish we could give you better advice of like what we did right, but I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, a similar thing happened to me, where my partner like really did absolutely nothing and like wouldn't participate. And I let what?
She didn't show up to class for like 8 weeks.
I don't think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh.
And I let that hold me back, and kind of like I didn't push myself, and I wish that I had just kind of moved on my own and like learned from that, and just really done it myself, but I didn't. And that's like one of my biggest regrets. Since like in critique, it was like actually embarrassing to present. So I would say just, if other people aren't participating in the group, there's nothing you can do really to change their mindset or their behavior. Just, you have control over yours. So be proud of your project and take it on yourself.
Okay.
Someone raised their hand.
Well, Shelby, do you want to add to that? She said she's the only one who did it right. So I'd love to hear what this answer is.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me a lot. I'm sorry. The art directors in my quarter weren't that passionate. So for multiple projects, like we'd have due dates, we'd be texting or whatever our means of communication was, and there would be nothing on the other end. So I did have to go in and try to Photoshop things as best as I could. And I probably spent, hours wasted trying to make things look not so shitty, but still not great. But yeah, that's what I just had to end up taking on a bit more work. But at the end of the day, they were projects that I believed in and that I was passionate about. And I wanted to be able to show and not be like embarrassed at critique to show it, and potentially, put it on my site. So yeah, I just would try to pay extra attention to those Photoshop classes, learn myself on the side, and
real quick, I know we have 2 hands raised. Daniel, I think one good thing is to not give excuses. Like, take when you take ownership of something, like in critique, if you're presenting it and the partner sucked, it doesn't matter. And you don't need to mention it. I think you can say, hey, there were some challenges around this project, but this is what we ended up doing, or this is what I ended up doing. But ultimately, throwing someone else under the bus or giving an excuse of like, well, I didn't have my team participate.
Yeah, like you can just say I worked on this alone. I'm not, I'm not a designer, but here's my best Photoshop job. Like, you get the idea across with your copy or whatever it is.
I guess, does that negatively impact your portfolio though? Like, if you don't have the best Photoshop thing though, like that's like.
I mean, I would definitely perfect that before putting it online. Again,
There's
find
another way.
people in school, like have your go-to people. Everyone needs something from each other. Like, but hopefully it's not just transactional, you know, like these are actually my friends who I like to hang out with and it's fun. So if you can have that component, that's great. But if not, at least find a partner that is reliable. If you're an art director, you need a copywriter. If you're a copywriter, you need an art director or a designer. Like, it's just, that's how it goes. You need each other. Find someone that you can say, I'm going to be your go-to person. I will be reliable. When you need something, hit me up, and I'm going to do the same with you.
Yep. Miami Gallery, I think, had their hand first.
Yeah. Hi guys. Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Axel. I'm here in Miami, clearly. So my question is, I think it's like a commonly thing that a lot of people like question is, what skills or things you guys think stand out when you're reviewing a portfolio for hiring someone? Because like right now I'm in a period where basically like I'm putting all my work together and I'm like building my portfolio. And sometimes I feel like, well, it just looks another like Adobe portfolio template and it's just like 1 in 1,000. So my question would be, what stand out for you when you're like looking for someone to hire, or even like with your knowledge of the industry, what do you think you usually stand out like when you're hiring a copywriter, that kind of stuff?
I can start this one. In my experience, what's most important is how you think. That's what every interviewer that I've sat down with, they want to know, like, the way your brain works and that you are using it like constantly, you know. I mean, ideas come from anywhere. If you had an idea because you were in the shower and XYZ happened and it made you think, oh my God, this would be great for this product, tell that story. Tell them, like, from inception how you got this idea and the work you put forth to create the project that you did or the work that you have on your portfolio. In my experience, which has not been much, but thus far, that's what hiring managers are most interested in. And, you know, if there's, like we were talking about before, this project we worked on, yeah, it was great, it went well, it was just a struggle because, you know, I didn't really have a partner, so I had to learn to do all this stuff myself. They like that. Like, if you did take those extra projects, if you did take the initiative to learn a new program or whatever it is to bring your idea to fruition and be able to present it, it's the way you talk about your ideas more than the idea itself. Almost like it's the way, you know, if you're passionate about it, where it came from, that you took the time to do XYZ until you were happy with it. Those are the things that, in my experience, have helped the most and what people look for.
To like piggyback that, I'll say there's so many talented designers, and it's not that difficult to, you know, have good taste and know what something like pretty or aesthetically pleasing is. So when you're like against other people, you know, there's obviously going to be beautiful portfolios, but like Shelby was saying, it's really about your ideas and how you think and like the depth behind it, and like the story is so important. And I think that's something really great that M.AD teaches you. And like with all the projects, it's like it comes with something so much deeper, not just like make a pretty packaging design. It's always more than that.
Yeah, for me, I haven't had yet the opportunity to be the interviewer. On the other side of things, just being a year and a half, 2 years out, I just haven't gotten high enough up the ladder, or started my own company. You don't have to be high up the ladder. Sorry. I think the willingness, the openness to learn and adjust and flex, like showing flexibility, is what got me my 2 jobs. This current one, I really don't know. I didn't know anything about Figma, not a UX UI designer, didn't really know After Effects. So much of it was digital, and I've spent the last 2 years working in producing physical, working with printers, production-based signage outside. It was all very physical. And I expressed that I can learn, and I am willing to, and I want to, and I want to grow. And that is, I think, the thing that kind of set me apart.
Yes, that's one other thing I forgot I wanted to add is you might not always be the most talented person in the room, but you can always be the most hardworking.
Yeah.
And that counts for more, because if you're willing to keep an open mind and always willing to learn, then your employer is going to see that and they'll choose you over the most talented, because what's that saying? Like hard work works whenever talent doesn't.
Pippa said it our first orientation day, July 2018. She said, hey, they're going to be half of this group are going to be people who gold, just whatever they touch turns to gold. The other half of you are shit and you're gonna, she didn't say that, but like the other half of you are terrible and you are gonna have to work and work and work and work to make it gold. But guess what's guess like the majority of the time, the people who can touch it and it turns to gold fail so much more often because there's not the hard work and they're not having to go back every day and like put it in. Those people who have the hard work and the willingness will win out. I think practically in a set of skills, if this is like a piece of the answer you wanted to know, obviously the three main Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, I would know all of those three fairly front to back. InDesign and Illustrator, I found that I use a little more than Photoshop, but knowing Photoshop and like my way around that and editing pictures well has been a skill that I wouldn't have lived without. I think outside of those, Premiere and After Effects are important. I don't know the order of those two, but having some knowledge of those would be extremely important. And then as the world progresses, and one thing that you need to do is sit down and like maybe what you want to do, what skills you find important, what you enjoy, like maybe make that list. I don't really mess with anything web focused unless I have to. I'm doing a lot of Figma stuff. I get to thankfully work with developers and hand it off, but Figma would be the other application, or something centered in the prototyping, like UX world, of where you can mock up like web and mobile really easily. Those would be like the skills that I would, like practical skill set I would try and brush up on.
And then like Peyton said, also passion. If you're applying for a job and you really do want it, don't think it sounds cheesy or be afraid to say that. Like I've been looking at y'all's work like since I was in school. It's what I always like measure my work against, whatever it is. People like to know that. Like when Hank introduced me to the woman for the internship at Principal Design, I remember whenever she told me that she was going to give me the internship, she said, I had told her, oh, I'll clean the bathrooms if you want. Like I've worked in restaurants, nice urinals. I'll do whatever. I just want to get in there somehow. And she said that stuck out to her, and that's why she ended up giving me the internship when really they didn't even have that much work for me to do, like just because she saw how much I really wanted to do it. Yeah. And I don't know who was next.
How's that? Was that good, Axel? Cool. Katerina?
Hi, thanks for talking. I really love the camaraderie that you guys have. It gives me hope for, after graduation and keeping in touch with my pals.
I mean, we're still depressed, but you can smile.
Depressed together.
Depressed together.
Cool. Hope for the future. Well, I had a question. I guess it's kind of geared towards Dan because you mentioned this, but any of the three. So you mentioned how like the hardest thing is to start. Yeah. And this quarter in particular, like we're in the second week, and I have a bunch of like big picture projects. And so I found it like really hard not to get caught up in like, oh, this is how I would want it to look in the end, maybe like a big event festival, and like trying to, like jumpstart the process and the design. And so I was wondering if you had any like tips of things you do when you kind of are thinking a little too far in the future and aren't starting.
Totally. I usually sleep until about noon on that day because I'm feeling really overwhelmed. No, I'm just joking. Unless it's a Saturday. I have found, wow, let me see. I think it's something I'm actively trying to get better at. I don't know that I have I have answers for you, but it's not the answer. I think especially like per person, this is something that people deal with in differing levels. I know some people who can immediately just start forever and they're fine and they never have problems starting a project and they have ideas and it comes to them. And it's always an uphill battle for me. Sketching, you're a designer. Mm-hmm. What location are you at?
Atlanta.
Okay, so you have Hank and some other people. So you have to sketch, you have to use trash paper, and you have to get all of your bad ideas out first. it's not only getting your bad ideas out, but what that trash paper is making you doing. And that's why you use a Sharpie, and that's why it's trash paper. You just start going, because sitting at the computer, and so much of what I produce, if it's not perfect when I'm producing it, I get so I get so discouraged and I stop, and it never comes to anything because it's not perfect right off the bat. But I have to then get out the trash paper, and Peyton was kind enough to give me the rest of hers, so I've been going through it. And use a Sharpie and just start writing stuff down. Like, even if that is having to get some of those end goals pictures out of your mind, like if you can't stop picturing what it might look like at the end, well, then start sketching billboards and start sketching the stage design and the canopy, and like, are there going to be tents, and are the porta potties wrapped, or what's the signage to get around the park? If that is like really, you're stuck right here, get it down on the paper, but you can't look for it to be good. You really just have to start going and going and going. I think something else that has always helped me, that is like without fail, going back to trash paper with a Sharpie is something that has helped me.
Wait, can I add to that really quickly?
Sure.
Don't lose your thought. That was something that was so hard for me, like painful. Like the logos class we had, where we literally would have to come with like hundreds of logos for the same thing. I don't know if you've experienced that class yet, but it was so difficult because you'd think that like the first good idea you have is like the one, and then Hank would say, okay, now you have to come back with 100 new sketches, and it's literally so difficult. Like it really is, but you really do come up with like the best ideas, and you shock yourself. Like there's so many times where you think like, I'm not going to come up with anything better than this, like this is the end result. But then when Hank forces you to push yourself, then you come up with something so much better. And like we've won awards because of that, like on our logos, like because we pushed ourselves and like got somewhere we never would have gotten if we just settled with our first idea. So that's what I wanted to contribute. What?
Yeah, that was great. I'm just agreeing. That was a great point. The other two things I would say is, one, to-do lists. Like I'm very visual. And so like right now at work, I had something to do and I couldn't, it was just a deck I had to redesign. I couldn't do it and I didn't know why. And it was like, oh, well, I need to do this. And I'd move to a new slide and start to move something and then like jump. And I might be undiagnosed ADD, but writing it down on paper and being like, all right, slideshow, slide 1, do that. Slide 2, I need to do that. I can delete slide 3. Just for some reason, putting it down on paper concrete so much. And I was able to look at the slideshow and knock it out in like an hour, where I had spent 7 hours earlier today, like laboring over and getting nowhere, and putting it down on paper helped. So to-do list, writing things down. And then the third, I was going to say is kind of a bit stupid, not stupid. I don't think it's stupid. It's a bit hippie-ish. Creativity is creativity, right? Like creatives are like, oh my gosh, and we're emotional and we feel things and we love beauty and we have to see life in beauty. But creativity doesn't come when we always want it to. And one thing I have really had to adjust in working from home in the past 3 months, because I wasn't remote before that, working from home the past 3 months, is sometimes I'll get up at 8 a.m. I had my coffee, would have like done some push-ups, and I'm like, this is gonna be a productive day. And I'm at my desk and nothing happens. I can't concentrate. I don't want, like, I'm in a foul mood, like something shifts. And then if I'm like, okay, you know what do you want to do? And I give myself the room to do what I want to do. And I'm like, well, I wanted to go play video games. I'm like, great, you can have an hour. I'm like telling this to myself, I'm a 5-year-old. You can have an hour before lunch, like leave right now, go downstairs. You can play your PS4 for an hour. Then you're going to eat lunch. And when you come back upstairs, we're going to give this another go. And it helps so much giving myself, it's totally mental. It's totally psyche. Like a therapist would help me know why I do it. But it helps myself to just give myself that room and be like, for some reason, I think it's the deadline or something hanging over me, and removing that and just saying, do this, get your mind off of it and come back relaxed is something that has also really, really, really helped me. Like writing things down, sketching out, and then giving yourself room to, I don't know what I would call that, not be creative for a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
That's something on my first day of work at Haha. My creative director said, look, like I understand, like as a creative, there's gonna be days where you're just not creative, where it just doesn't come to you, and that's okay. Like it happens, and like I'll respect that. And it's just something that happens to all creatives. So that's just a good thing to remind yourself.
Yeah, I'm not a designer, but same thing. Sometimes I have so many tasks and it's like, I don't know where to start. And then I feel like I wasted so much time trying to organize myself, or, it's just like doing nothing. Like, Shelby, get it together. And so another kind of like elementary, I guess, we talk to ourselves like we're kids and give ourselves rules. But one thing that kind of helps me, I'll just set a timer on my phone for an hour. And I say, okay, I'm going to write X amount of emails or whatever I have to write. I'm going to see how much of this work I can knock out in just this hour, like go time, put my phone down from there, no distractions, don't look at anything that buzzes, just put my head down and do this one thing for 1 hour. Like that's nothing. I can do anything for an hour. And that kind of helps me just separating myself. And then like Dan said as well, maybe look at I'm a lister as well, being a writer. If you have like that project you're working on, look at what you need at the end, a complete fair, and then break that down into pieces. What do fairs have? A food stand, bathrooms, somewhere for people to be in lines, whatever it is, make a list of all those components and then narrow in on one and start from there. Break it down into tiny little pieces, and then eventually you'll have your end result.
Yeah.
But okay, that was too long. I'm sorry.
No, that was
Who
great.
was next?
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is a great question. And if I ever find out the real answer,
Yeah, let us know what works for you.
Nicholas. Nope.
Hey y'all, thank you so much. This is so helpful. Y'all are amazing. And you're my favorite. So
no, keep going.
Is that it?
We're helpful. I didn't know how handsome I am or how pretty we are.
I think I'm gonna have to come out to Denver. So you might get me out there. So my question is for each one of you, and it's really just asking you a very straight up, like, if you're able to, could each of you give an example of a type of assignment you have right now, or something that, like, if you're at an agency, they would assign you as an intern, or that you were assigned as an intern, so I can like have a picture of like what it looks like.
Designer or copywriter or
Art director, trying to switch to copywriter.
okay.
Oh, so I have less AD experience. I do love advertising, and Mad Men got me into design. That's advertising to design is my journey. But I would say I'll go back to my first job. And even now, starting out knowing nothing at a tech company, there's a learning curve. At my first job, it was a lot of taking assets, which would be different for an AD, but I was taking a lot of assets that were already designed and compiling into different things. Like we were redoing a car dealership. The creative director had the logo, the brand color, the type. He needed the brand guide built, and he needed the stationery suite. So business card, envelope, letterhead, fun stuff like that. And so that was a lot of me starting out, is just kind of executing some things that were passed down the line. And then right now it's a lot of introduction. It's a smaller, like quicker projects. I think things that don't have really a long timeline that can be done and you can see the end. Like the first couple of weeks, I was doing a lot of blog posts. I've done a couple ebooks in the past 2 months. And it's been all like intro, in the sense that the topic that these were centered around were very low level and very digestible by people who didn't understand the industry. Now that I've gotten kind of past that point, there are a lot more things that are high level that I've been working on, since I now have a reference for the tech world.
So God, I really did do so much freelance starting out and like the junior level. So I have a lot of these projects that were very unsexy that I never heard of when I was in my M.AD while I was in school. So one of them would be native ads. I was like, what the fuck's a native ad? What the heck's a native ad? Whatever. I was assigned that at one of my jobs, where that literally is like one of those little clickbaity, whenever you read a blog and then you see other blog suggestions pretty much underneath it that are very three steps to get trim, like that kind of stuff, where I was like, this is a copywriter's job. Like, couldn't anybody do this? Where you're like, oh God, that again. I'm going to tell you, these are like the negative ones. Okay. You do get good opportunities too. It's not like I was just getting fed, it's not like it doesn't matter. It's somebody has to do it. And if it wasn't me, somebody else would be doing it, and a different copywriter would be doing it at the agency. So never take it as like, I'm the junior, they're giving me all the shit work. Make the shit work as cool as it can be for being shit work, and then you'll get better work, So don't just say, I'm going to take 2 minutes to write this because it's boring and no one's going to read it and doesn't matter anyway. Like, make those headlines that are 5, 7 words, whatever it is, make them the best 7 words you can. Even if it's for one of those little clickbaity things that you're like, this is so stupid, because if not, you'll only be getting those and you won't get any of the fun stuff. Like other things.
It differed for you. So like at Principal, they were like really brand focused, like identity. So you did like some cool language stuff, right?
Yeah,
in your internship.
I mean, look, a lot of it really was not sexy starting out. I'm not gonna lie. Like whenever I was at Principal, even they do very cool work, but they also do work that, lives places that maybe isn't the most fun thing that people just need to read. For instance, they have a restaurant conglomerate group where different restaurants live within it, whatever. They were closed because of COVID. So this restaurant was, adapting like everyone did. And instead of having a restaurant, they turned it into a local grocer. So instead of ordering the filet, you can buy it raw, and they had it ready for you to pick up and cook in your house, kind of thing. Same with veggies and all that. So one of my tasks was literally writing descriptions for freaking, this feeds your family of this, like hang out outside, whatever. These are terrible examples. This isn't how I write, so don't judge, but can't think of anything right now. It's like perfect for a picnic or this, like kind of things, just grocery lists that I'm describing, and ways that you can use these items to make them more fun, whatever. But one that was a little like much more exciting and more fun for me to do personally, another restaurant they have is a Mexican restaurant, and because they were closed down, they were redoing the interior. And I got to come up with sayings that they would paint on the walls. I've done a little bit of everything, like web copy for banks, not the funnest. And it's like banks that are in every state, but they all have to have the same message, but somewhat different. Literally everything: blogs, email, SMS, texts that you get from companies trying to get you to sign up for stuff or reminding you of XYZ, push notifications you get on your app, emails, like everything. And I took that job at Insomnia, and I really was not like, I was like, okay, that's a cool brand, and the CD had a lot of cool work, so I was like, that's a nice connect, kind of like was really my thinking going into it. And then, like I said, it got me the job where I am now, and I actually ended up liking that more than I thought I would. So I just think you should try everything out, even if it's not what you think that you'll like, because a lot of times you might end up surprising yourself. And you might like the work that people think is boring and unsexy, and you might be like, I love doing this. Like, I can do this from my house, from my couch. I can do it anywhere. Like, sign me up, and that's fine. You don't have to like the same things that everyone strives to like. Like, you don't have to want to make a Super Bowl commercial. Like, if you like doing the in-house stuff, or you like doing anything else, like, just find what that is. And this isn't part of that. Sorry, I went off, but I would also say try to build your book around that. If you do know what you want to do, like if you know that you hate campaigns and you don't ever want to do that again in your life, don't just have campaign work in your portfolio, because that's what people are going to see. If you're not getting the work that you want, create it for yourself so that you can get hired for the things that you want to do.
I will say, like, I'm not gonna lie, like your first jobs or internships can be really frustrating, because like they know they're hiring an intern or a junior designer, so like they're kind of want you to do like their busy work that they don't feel like doing, like just like putting together, like Dan said, blog posts. Like my first job with the burned victims was like to make a sheet with the photos to like hand to doctors, and it was like so it was awful, and like there's just so much boring busy work that you don't want to do when like you're used to school, when you're literally building a brand from scratch and you can have so much fun with it and you have so much control of it. And like, again, really appreciate that, because like going into your first job, I mean, for the most part, you're not going to be able to do that. But like you really do still learn so much, and like it is a good base. Like just Shelby was saying, like even if it's like a 7-line thing, like do your best, even if you just have to do a layout for something, like show them multiple options and like show that you're really going out of your way and putting your best into it. And like that's how you'll earn their trust to do other things and go further.
Thank you.
Question there.
Thank you.
Is there
Y'all
anything?
need like your own do a live stream with IG or like Facebook. Like I'd watch it.
I was gonna say that. I mean, I don't know. I've never really gone live on IG. But I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna say that we can put our LinkedIn's, our Instagrams are mentioned from M.AD School and Portfolio on their social medias from the post. So you can follow us and reach out to us, like DM, whatever. We're really findable on LinkedIn. We have emails and phone numbers, which are also accessible through your administration. So if there's anything else that we can help you with, we are all three willing to give any knowledge. And as we are learning and as we are going through this process, happy to share that stuff. And maybe one day they'll have us three back when we're like 50.
Hopefully millionaires.
Hopefully millionaires. And then I can share.
We will be millionaires.
And just because you mentioned LinkedIn, I would, if you don't do this already, every time you have a speaker, connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a note. Tell them thank you. Just so that'll always be in their archives. Shut up.
Do we all expect
If you
LinkedIn
speakers,
messages
connect with
after
them
that?
through LinkedIn.
Later, if you see they're hiring, you can apply and say, oh, hi, I remember you from, you spoke at my M.AD here, and I really loved what you had to say about the company. I just submitted my application, hope to hear back, kind of thing. Even if that's not the person that's going to be reviewing your application, just letting someone know. And then same thing if, like right now, I have a job, I'm not looking for another one, but recruiters on LinkedIn hit me up all the time, and don't ghost them. Do not just be like, I don't need a job right now, I'm not going to respond. Oh, thank you so much, for taking the time to reach out. I'm not currently looking to
Try again in 6
change,
months.
like to leave my current job, but I'd love to stay connected in case anything changes in the future. And they always say, oh yes, that sounds great, and accept my invitation. So that way, if I see they're hiring later, I won't feel weird reaching out and saying, hey, I know you reached out to me a few months back, and I ghosted you, but now I'm ready. Always, like, even that is building a connection. Like,
Yeah.
You will have employers ghost you. Trust me, it's happened quite a lot. But do not be the ghoster.
Oh, Galaxy Note. That is a great name. So interesting. People come up with the best names these
Don't
days.
judge.
I'm assuming that that's their phone, not their real name. Or else I wouldn't have said that. Another question, any tips on transitioning if you have mostly school project experience in your portfolio and not a lot of paid experience? How can you convey or communicate to employers you have experience and understanding despite it not being paid?
That's a big thing, because like I was saying before, like it can be frustrating in your first jobs because like they want you to kind of do the busy work, where M.AD really prepares you. Like they always say that those 2 years of school are really like equal to 5 years of job experience. And it's frustrating because like when they look at your resume, they don't really see that. But that's where, like, when your portfolio comes in, they really don't know what's real and what's not. Like, honestly, like you have brands on there and people don't know if you really did that for the brand or not. And regardless, like I've heard from employers that like years don't really matter that much, because like someone could be working for years and not be talented, but like if your portfolio shows like you're really great at what you do, then that stands out the most. Like I learned in this field that portfolio matters a lot more than resume.
1000%.
I found that too. I only still to this day, I have to update my website because I only have my school projects on there.
Same.
And it's done great for me, honestly. it hasn't done great for me. I bombed an interview back in March because of it, because that's all I could talk about. Because from my most recent job, I left. I didn't. Anyways, different story. It's a story for another time. But the school things are so applicable. You can take all of your thinking, all of your conceptual ideas, and apply it to the real world. You can speak to group projects, having to collaborate, having to work on teams, having to communicate with administration and the teachers to properly convey ideas. Everything that you're doing in school can be immediately translated into the professional world. You have to be that gap. You have to bridge that gap, though. No one else can speak to your school project. So I've always practice interviews. Know what you're going to say, know some questions you're going to ask before you walk in. And one thing, you can go over the work and like how you're going to talk about your work. Maybe this company in particular focuses on cameras and you have a project on cameras. So talk about that project, bridge that gap. In school, I had this project and I did this way and thought about it this way because X, Y, and Z, and had to work on a team and communicate properly. And, you know, all of the things that you would encounter that you think you would encounter in the real world, just translate them, because you're experiencing it, you're doing it, you're designing, even though you're not being paid. So yeah. It's no less.
Just because the work isn't real, like, or wasn't created, the work you put into it was real. And all the things you did behind the scenes, that's what matters. Like, because the projects could have been real. It's the same type of work that you'll be doing once you get out.
I think it's being able to change someone's mindset that they have about a student is difficult. If they are so closed-minded that they're not willing to give a student the light of day because they only have school projects, they are limiting themselves and their company drastically, because so many of the best ideas come out of design schools. PC comes out, it's you guys right now, because you're in it, you're surrounded by it, and you're fresh, it's exciting, you're energetic. To not capitalize on that is their own fault. So if they're really that close-minded, you don't want to work for them.
And another thing, like another resource, I'm sure y'all use Upwork designers to get renders done. If you're a writer, an art director, whatever you are, you can also be a worker on Upwork. So, you know, you might get paid $20 for this project that took you 3 hours, and that's going to piss you off, but it will be real. You know, and those are like ways you can get real jobs. If you work at a restaurant, if you work somewhere in the community and they need anything, if they're putting a sign on their door for a 4th of July sale, if they're want to make a social post, you know, like, I'm sure they'd take your work. They might not pay you for it if that's not your job, but you know, you can say, oh, you're going to put this up. I can design that social post. I can create this. Like, just, you can always create work for yourself. You know, everyone needs work somewhere in the world, whether you have to do that for free in the beginning, just to show your skill set and have like some real world experience under your belt, do it. Like, it might not be glamorous. It might not be, you might not get paid anything, but you'll get paid back for then being able to talk about those experiences in your next interview.
Yeah, Galaxy Note, if you have interviews coming up, or if this is in reference to something, sorry, I don't know your name. That's why I called you Galaxy Note. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I love helping people with like I won't do your resume, but I will talk to you about it and like talk about how we can frame some of your stuff to like bridge that gap. So that's another, like, we're a resource.
I think the way you talk about your projects is just so important too. Like, I remember, I'm sorry, Dan, I'm going to call you out, but whenever, I think it was the last quarter, you had worked on a lamp and a few other projects that you had, and you had to do write-ups for them. And I said, show it to me, send it to me. And he sent me his write-ups, and I was like, oh God, no. Because he had told me about this project that he did. I specifically remember the blue lamp that you created for birthing mothers. Yeah. And I remember whenever he was talking about it in person to me, he was like, oh, it's this shape because it's soothing, like it's no sharp lines, it's blue because of XYZ. Like, he had reasoning and thought behind every single thing that he did, but his write-up did not mention that. I was like, okay, I love your project the way you told me about it, but if I just read this and looked at your lamp, not impressed. You know, or like, I'm not obsessed with it. I'm like, because you're not explaining why you did everything. It doesn't feel as powerful. So I remember I was on my phone and I just rewrote it in a text right after he sent it, because I was like, this is unacceptable. I was like, no, Dan, your project is so much cooler than this. You just didn't talk about it in the right way. Like, no one knows why you did all these things that you did. And that's everything that shows your thinking. So like just seeing this finished lamp, like, okay, yeah, that's pretty. But if you know every single thing he did had a reason behind it and shows your thinking, that's a totally different story than just saying that looks cool.
And this was a school project.
Like,
This is all of my reasoning. This is the concrete stuff behind it.
yeah. So show that you know, that you're thinking about every single thing you do, not like, I like blue and I chose it.
And for your new question, I don't put the ad school that I worked there or list it really anywhere on my website. It's in my bio on my about page. It says I attended Miami Ad School at Portfolio Center in Atlanta, Georgia. And then on my resume under education, it's listed there. But in the projects, I don't ever specify this is a school project. I literally jump in and say, like, when thinking about restaurant design and what's the story that can be created there, and just jump into briefing the project. There's no reason that you have to say it was a school. I think that answers that. But
Yeah, I don't say, I mean, maybe I did just to tell a story with my intro, but it's definitely not necessary to say like this is fake and never saw the light of day.
Yeah.
No one needs
Yeah,
to.
they all seem real. Like,
are there any other questions that we guys could answer for you? I hope this has all been very helpful. Again, please reach out to us. We're always happy to do these.
Yeah, I know whenever we were in school, it kind of felt like sometimes the speakers just seemed so far away from where we were, like, you know, unattainable, kind of like, oh,
And they would say reach out, but like,
Yeah.
they're so professional and famous, they'll
But
never
we're so
listen to us.
unsuccessful.
And no one,
We have
so we
time.
have time.
which is like very inspiring to see that like we could be them one day, but it's like,
It is.
okay, how do I get there? Like,
You
what do I do now? So yeah, we're happy to like, please reach out to us, because like when we were in your shoes, like we all wished that we had someone to reach out to that was like not way up here.
Thank you guys so much. It's so good to see your friendship last for so long. It's just amazing. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. My name is Tyler. I'm going to be one of the admissions advisors helping you guys to start your creative careers here with the Miami Ad School with our 4 portfolio programs: art direction, copywriting, photography and video, and design, as well as our boot camps. We are well equipped to make you well equipped for the creative industry. And my job is to help you transition smoothly from prospective to enrolled student. We have financial aid and scholarships available for all of our portfolio programs, and our 4 U.S. locations, Miami, Atlanta, San Francisco, and New York, as well as our international locations, are ready for you guys to go ahead and enroll when you are ready. So feel free to go to our website, www.miamiadschool.com, hit apply now, start your application, and if you have any questions, set up a call and we will be happy to help you.